I'm hoping that I can remove this plate by first removing this block, which means I have to undo the two brass plates that hold that together. I've just taken this one off, and you can see the colour that the wood was originally, and it doesn't look as if there's been anything added to the wood like a lacquer or polish or anything after that plate went on, so that's just what the wood looks like through aging. Even more interesting is having taken the other plate off, oops, nearly lost it, you can see the ball bearing arrangement that's on top of the spring, and you can see that moving. When I move the glass slide holder, and that's pressed down, which keeps the slide against the spring, and then with that knob that's in here, you can screw it down at one end to level it up. Well, that's off. The condensers will slide out anyway, but the block is off. We can now see those two pins that protrude out to push the slide to keep it upright. I don't know why he didn't just fit two sprung plates either end. You know, the tension would be there automatically. There was no doubt of reason. He didn't mess about with small fittings. These, what I thought were screws, were long bolts and nuts holding this together, and there are several of these things. You can see the imprint of the Meccano girder there. And the lower plate is pretty much as it was when new, I think, because there's no dust settled on there. Now we can see how that slide holder can be adjusted. It's cleverer than I thought because it swivels in the centre. I thought it was just going up and down at one end to give some compensation, but it's quite sophisticated on those circular swivels. Very clever. I wonder if he thought of that, or whether that came out of a book or a magazine. I started to clear off all this black, and then of course I realised it's graphite. He's put that on there because it's wood against wood, and it's still doing its job, so I'll be leaving that. And with the baseboard off, treasure trove. All those little knurled nuts, those collars on the terminals, I had no idea they were there. And I need at least one, and probably two, for the front of the machine, for the lens panels. You need one here, and possibly, if it's locked and cross-threaded, which I think it is, and they do look like the same. There's one underneath there, which so that's it. So I've been looking into sources for those and couldn't find any, so that's good. So where the wire would show, I can put some display wire on. You know, you can talk about authenticity, but obviously you can't use it, and it's all kind of a bit horrible, and the thing is, bits drop off right there, so you just get crumbly rubble all over the place. I've never seen a sort of panel mounted 15 amp Bakelite socket before, so I didn't immediately recognise it, but we certainly don't need that, but I'll leave it on there. I'm old enough to remember using this old rubber stuff when my granddad wired up lighting in my converted attic room, which was going to become a bedroom. I helped him, in inverted commas, and he used stuff that he kept, I think, or possibly found in the shed when we moved in 1959, and a year or two later used it for bedroom wiring, lighting wiring. At the moment I've got the two mains cables coming out of the back flap of the lantern, which is not as per original, and I suppose I could organise it so they came out of the lantern through one of these holes and then through the open side, as the original wiring did, more or less. But quite honestly, I think that will just cause complications, and I think it'll be easier for me to remove the lighting unit when I need to if I just keep the wiring at the back of the lantern. I think it's time to put this thing back together. I've de-rusted the 9 screws. The 9 screws that hold this panel on, and you take screws off and nothing happens. So I think he glued and screwed it. Anyway, it ain't coming off. With that middle thumb screw fixing, you can actually gain access to the back and see that it's a screw in there. If he's done the same with the other 2 that we can't gain access to, because and they're blocked with those big screws, but we can't gain access through the hole easily, so I'm assuming there must be a screw head. And because this one's just turning round and round, it means the screw head's turning round and round. If I could get that nut off, I could probably tap that screw through. Anyway, that's a little job to do. Okay, I've managed to gain access, and there is a screw head in there, well buried, but maybe we can do something about that. So one came off complete and the other one didn't. To hold the screw in place on the other side of this, which will mean it will be possible in the future to take the screws out without resorting to a hammer and chisel. I'm cleaning up these resistance units and they're coming up very nice, just getting the dirt off. But of course this one in particular has that rust, and elsewhere you can tell that the rust is actually forming underneath the chrome plating. And should I leave it? Well, this is going to be a working machine, and although if it was simply a display item I'd definitely just leave that, I have an idea for how to actually improve that. As to trying to date this thing more carefully, one side of the lamp house has got this Meccano girder on it, and it's in dark green. Now, until 1926, Meccano was nickel plated. They changed to the red-green colour scheme in 26 to celebrate 25 years since the Meccano patent. Now for a year it was actually, the green parts were in pea green. Then they changed to dark green. This is definitely dark green. So it's 1927 or later. 1934 they changed the colour to gold. The colour of the girders was gold until after the war when it went back to green. So pretty sure this is definitely pre-war, this machine, so it can't be from the childhood Meccano set of the guy who made it. It wouldn't have been green. So if you made this thing after 1934, then you bought up old stock. So it hasn't helped us a huge amount, except that it wasn't before 1927. Cleaning these off. These resistances were made by the Cressel Manufacturing Company of Birmingham. Pretty chunky old resistances. I won't be using those. Got to clean underneath there. Just about finished these three now, and these are the two with the tops covered in tape, and that's the original. I think they look fine. I didn't want to leave the rust there. I've got no great nostalgia for rust, especially when the machine is going to be used. This was a restoration rather than just conservation. So I think that was the right thing to do. Okay, well, we're back to the tricolour slide projector. I'll just turn the cooling fan off so you can hear me better. There we are. Now, as you can see, I finished these. Sort of repair, restoration. As I said, I don't have any particular love or nostalgia for rust, and this is a working machine. I've got experiments to do with this, so I want to use it in the future. There were the 4 screws that hold this top on were missing, so I've actually put little split pins in there. Just tie them together so they don't get lost, which means that this top can come off very easily, and because if I'm moving it somewhere I want to make sure the filters inside are properly wrapped and okay, I need to get this on and off. Otherwise, as you can see, I think it's looking a lot prettier. Everything cleaned up, and all the adjustments are now working, both sides. These have been replaced, that's working. This has been cleaned, and this is the modern twin flex that I've used, which does nothing. It just simulates where the wires were originally, the horrible old crumbly rubber covered wires, and I've kept that little novelty, that particular piece of curly wire on there. So none of that does anything now, but it's all the original pieces, apart from the horrible wire that had to go. And of course everything now likewise is inside there. There is no dimming of individual LED units, but I guess if I need to reduce the brightness of one or other of these to match up the colours, I can put a very slight neutral density filter in there or something. Anyway, from the experiments initially, that didn't seem to be necessary. And if we have to live with a little bit of colour balance, not quite right, I don't think that's really a problem. The rust on here has been cleaned off. It looks rusty because it's reflecting the red from underneath, but it isn't rusty. We did miss seeing a proper screening of one of the images last time, which was the house. So I'm going to show that properly this time. Now at the moment that's the closest I can get to lining up the colours. Still working on the line-up. The red tends to be too high, and there are some other small problems, but not better than we had on this particular image before, and I wasn't projecting it properly, so that's where we're at. And next year I've got ideas for some experiments with this machine. More on that another time.